guys, welcome along to our second episode in a brand new season of Rural New Zealand. I'm your host, Gordon Finlater. Well, coming up in the show, we meet Mike Scott, who's studying towards an agribusiness diploma through the primary ITO. We head out to Mayfield to check out the local A&P show, and we're joined by John Talbot from Bowden Environmental. But first up tonight, we went and checked out one of Hurunui's hottest events. The Hurunui Races were an event to see when they first begun back in 1874, before the event began to die off after the Second World War. However, in 2010, a group sought about resurrecting the event into what it is today.
Yeah, we do it every 2 years. We resurrected it again in 2010, and it was sort of my bright idea. I thought, well, we've got a racetrack here. Why not, use it, sort of thing. So, and a few of the guys, got hacks and horses around, just use them for mustering and that. And they said, oh yeah, let's come along, sort of thing. So, and then we got the sulky people and all that have come along, and they've, that adds a bit of what you might call class to it, sort of thing. With the colours and quite good competitive horses, it works out quite well. So
people talk about it for 2 years. They talk about the last one, and they start talking about the next one.
Oh, this has been going back over 100 years now. Like, this is way back. This is one of the original tracks that started off. Crossage racing. Yeah, guys would come out from Crossage on bring them out on the train and that for this sort of event. So yeah. So it's just carried on. There's a wee patch in the middle where it went under a bit. The horse sort of went away from the stations and that, and a crew from around here have got it going again for the last since 2010. Yeah, so it's all good, and it's getting bigger and bigger. You can see now people are starting to bring gazebos, barbecues, and having a good old day out. Yeah.
I thought I'd go and check out some of these gazebos and see how some of this year's crowd had prepared for the day. After checking out a few different spots, I had found easily the best spot of the day, belonging to a bunch of well-equipped local lads. So what is the key to having a good spot for the day?
Well, you got to, beer and food go hand in hand, so that's the key really. If you want longevity, food and beer. So we got got young Craig here on the barbecue, as it were.
We'll pop round, see what he's preparing over here.
Man's on the job.
A few sausages, a couple of chops.
And here we have a nice bit of lamb. Oh, what should we just put out?
So how long is she got to sit on there?
She'll be good about 4 o'clock, I reckon.
Is that when the fellas are going to need some food?
That's when the food comes key. Definitely.
Is that another part of the day, longevity?
Longevity, yeah. And then in the back, we got everything to keep everything cool. Got the old mighty chiller. Got the meat, got the ice, got the fluids.
And while all the bells and whistles are sure to make for a great day, these ladies had gone for a simpler but just as effective picnic-like feel to the day. You got your cheese and your dips.
Oh yeah, we're pretty well set up, prepared for anything.
What's the most essential thing that you must bring to the Hurunui Races?
Wine.
And those planning to last the distance would have been wise to bring more traditional forms of hydration, with the day turning out to be an absolute scorcher.
Actually, the biggest problem we have here is usually it's so hot that we don't, people do almost get too hot. So the working bee here yesterday was one of those extreme days of seemed like 40 degrees. So we got the working bee done early, and we were able to sort of put a bit of moisture back into our bodies, so that worked out quite well. So it's always a good fun day. The working bees can be as much fun as the actual day. So.
And speaking of fun, the races offer plenty of entertainment outside of the traditional harness racing. One event that took my eye was the man versus horse race.
He's got a everyone right on the horse. They were waiting. Kevin might just do it. And he has. They're beating the horse. Well done.
We do a few of these novelty events in between the races just to keep everyone entertained, because there's a bit of a time lapse of changing money over and getting bets and that ready, so we need to just keep things moving. So that's where, like last year, or 2 years ago, we tried this and it's worked. We'll do it again this year and do it again in the future. And one other thing we're sort of looking at is maybe we have man versus horse in a pull-a-thon. Get a big Clydesdale horse that can pull a cart and a man hook on the other side, or 3 men, or whatever it takes, and just see who can win the pull. Yeah, just country things for country races, really. Yeah.
The day's harness racing also had a novelty feel to it, with the punter's luck being in the hands of the racing gods, or rather a coloured piece of paper.
You can't go and just say, right, I want to put money on my mate. You go up there, you put your bids on, and then they draw a colour out of the bag to keep it even, because we're not a registered TAB. So it's still a good way. It's a bit of fun. They're only $2 bets. You can't go and put $1,000 on a horse. It's just a bit of fun, really. And I think they've been drawing sort of $9. So you're winning sort of $20 a race. Like things like that. Yeah. So it works bloody well. Yeah.
Calling the races was legend Ian Chambers, who after an over 30-year stint of calling races, comes out of retirement every 2 years for the event.
Oh, it's just that picnic atmosphere, I think. It's a superb day out, great for family. Young kids come out, they just have a ball, and you can see the different activities that go on with the draft horse racing. It's just a race day with just a great atmosphere.
Have you got the highest pressure job?
Possibly, after being retired for a few years and I haven't called a race for a couple of years, yes.
You got to do your homework?
You do, but very hard to do homework for a day like this when you get the field about 2 minutes before the race, and it's hard to probably compile from an administration point of view for this club, because the horses sort of arrive on the day, put into the fields, and I get to see the fields about 2 minutes before the race.
What is the worst thing that can happen in this line of work?
Losing your voice. I've done that. Not being able to see horses with the weather, fog or heavy rain and no windows that open and that type of thing. Had all those encounters over the years, raced in mud at Westport, all sorts of things. Yeah, and losing the voice is probably the worst one.
Ian's voice was in fine form on the day though, as we caught him in action, calling the next generation of drivers in the Kids Kart event, the perfect end to a great day of racing in the baking North Canterbury sun.
Second, third in at the line is going to be Poppy. Keegan's next to cross, followed by Moose, then to Hurunui Unicorn, and a gap behind those to Shay and Tigger.
And who knows, one of those youngsters might just be the next Dexter Dunn. Well, stay with us after the break where we meet Mike Scott and we're off to the Mayfield Show. Welcome back. Well, just outside of Southbridge you'll find Scott Fresh. Mike Scott is the man behind the operation and is currently studying towards his diploma in agribusiness through the primary ITO. After working his way through the ranks in the horticultural industry, Mike's decided he needs that magical bit of paper to add to his repertoire.
We grow up towards 30 hectares of lettuce a year, and I think 30 hectares probably doesn't sound like much, but it's a really high intensity, high volume crop. So 30 hectares can equate to nearly 1.5 million lettuce a year. And that's what comes out of this farm every season, all things going well. Fingers crossed it goes well, but that's essentially what we strive to do, and it's our main crop. We do a couple of other things. We do broccoli, we're starting to grow some mesclun and baby leaf spinach crops as well, which is just in an embryonic stage at the moment, but the lettuce is our staple, and it's a big part of what we do. So.
And with the help of what Mike calls his high-tech fridge, keeping it fresh is a breeze.
That gives us the ability to get our product, broccoli, lettuce, whatever it is we're growing, down to a 3-degree temperature, which is essentially what you have in your refrigerator, in a very short amount of time. So, and in the summers, as everyone in Canterbury knows, it's hot. It's 30. You can get 30 degrees, 35 degrees, and your lettuce is hot inside. So we can take that lettuce and get it down to 3 degrees in 40, 45 minutes. And so it's as fresh as it gets it. So by the time the customer gets it, it should be just as fresh as the hour we picked it. And that's sort of what we're striving to do. So, and that's, in any food, that's a philosophy that everyone should be looking to do. If you're a chef, or go back to the food industry, but a chef, you don't keep your produce outside or whatever. You keep it in the fridge and you keep it cold. If you go fishing, You don't catch a fish and put it on the deck and leave it there all day in the sun. You put it on ice, and it's the same sort of principle.
Mike trained as a chef before spending 15 years in North Australia. He worked his way up from picking the melons, mangoes and pumpkins to managing the crews. He returned to New Zealand in 2010 and joined the team at Scott Fresh. 3 years ago, he decided he needed a qualification to add to his experience and reputation, and despite working in horticulture, opted for a diploma of agribusiness.
In terms of running a business, I think that's probably where the biggest similarity is in terms of all those industries. The business still needs to be run properly, and I think that's where you can sort of join all those different farming groups together. So the way we farm is different, but the way the farm is managed financially or environmentally is very similar. So in terms of bookwork, financial budgets and stuff, have had nothing to do with it. I've been so far away from it. But in terms of managing people, managing the farm, managing the crops, and all the stuff, that's what I've done. So that side of things I'm very comfortable with. But the other side of things is all very, very new territory for me, and that's essentially what we're covering. So the first module we did was human resources, and so when I thought, human resources. I'll nail this, it's easy. But when you really get into it and you understand the laws, the WorkSafe laws, how you're dealing with people, hiring people, or if you don't get along, it's like when you delve really into it, there's so much to do. The last one was the finance one, which I really enjoyed. So that was something I really absolutely loved because we all know how to do maths, we all know, all that kind of stuff, but doing budgets and forecasting and except, that kind of stuff was just so foreign to me, but I really enjoyed learning about it.
And good luck to him. Well, we've all been to an A&P show. Long gone are the days of just having the best in show and largest vegetables though, with the public demanding something new and exciting. We went down to Mayfield to see how they're reinventing your average rural show. From kittens to Ferris wheels and even pig racing, the Mayfield Show had plenty to offer, and for committee member and former President Hayden Tasker, being involved in the event wasn't a choice.
My parents have been involved here for many, many years, and my dad was president here and I was president a few years ago, so I guess it's just one of those kinds of things. And I suppose you can fight your genetics for a period of your life, but eventually you give in to them and say, oh well, I guess I'll just end up doing that whether I want to or not,
For many, the glory days of rural A&P shows are seen as been and gone, something the committee at Mayfield have learnt to adjust to.
I think it's fair to say that the small A&Ps are struggling, and we certainly do have our issues, but we're going good, Look, you've just got to change it up. As far as being successful goes, I think you've just got to change it up and be the first to do things. So historically we've been a little bit innovative here, and we've ended up with other A&Ps kind of following our lead at times, and that's actually quite complimentary, really. I think it's good. It's quite flattering if they think you've done a good thing and want to do it themselves. So I think you've got to just be, changing it up all the time, and part of being able to do that is having new blood arriving on committee reasonably regularly.
What do you think it is that makes this event special?
Look, I think that we were one of the first A&Ps around, and this is before my time on committee, but I think we were one of the first A&Ps around to identify the fact that a traditional A&P show isn't really going to survive. And so we have systematically and very much on purpose gone out to create more of a country fair atmosphere. Because ultimately it's all about people through the gate, and so there's a limited amount of people who are going to be interested in a bunch of sheep and a few horses and whatnot. They want to go and see things and be entertained. So I think that was a real positive move by people that were on committee before me, and we've just continued to run that, and it's just a country fair atmosphere. It's really family orientated, so we pride ourselves on having free things for the kids to do. So they're not paying to do everything,
While there was plenty of free activities to keep the kids entertained, I decided to put my money on the line down Sideshow Alley. So what's the objective, to keep the top one?
Not the whole lot over, mate.
Oh, not the whole lot over?
Yeah, not the whole lot over, you got $15.
One go?
Yeah, 2 goes at it.
Okay.
Mate. Each ball's got to knock the whole set over.
All right, you ready, Si?
Yeah, we have a winner and it's all on camera. All right.
Look at that, beginner's luck.
Yeah, it's all on TV.
It was a case of beginner's luck, with my second attempt at doubling my money a complete failure.
Oh, he missed that side, but the man still gets $15.
I can't believe I thought they meant to be rigged. Hey, look, I think that the sideshow aspect is pretty important for an AMP. I think it would be not really an AMP show without Sideshow Alley, so to speak. So they bring their own colour to the whole show, and it's always nice to see a Ferris wheel, tootling along, and it's also interesting to hear people screaming with terror from time to time. Which is probably positive as well,
I was happy to leave the Ferris wheel to the young ones. However, I did find something else right up my alley.
To actually get it, we end up getting it up to nearly 26 bricks when we picked it, and hence we've actually won a bronze medal with that at the Canterbury Wines Award.
You're right, you do get those sort of rich, tanniny notes at the end.
At the start, and then all of a sudden you've got that tannins coming afterwards.
So what brings you guys to the Mayfield Show? You obviously keep coming back.
Oh, it's putting out wines out there to the local people, showing it, and that's just usually a good fun day. Look at it, just out here in this atmosphere.
And now, after another successful day out for all involved, it will be back to the drawing board for the brains behind the operation.
I can hang my hat on this, that later today, when the show starts to wind down, there'll be a few of the core committee members sitting around one of these tables saying, right, what worked, what didn't, what do we do next year? It'll start straight away. It really is a 12-month job thinking about and putting things in place to run a show for one day. It is a big deal. It is a very, very involved process to run an AMP show.
Yes, who knows what 2017 may hold for the Mayfield Show. Well, stay with us after the break. We're with Bowden Environmental, talking irrigation and effluent ponds. Welcome back to the show. Well, the consent process, it's everyone's favourite word. We were joined by one man that knows it like the back of his hand, as we caught up with John Talbot from Bowden Environmental. John Talbot is a chartered professional engineer specialising in water resources. John joined Bowden Environmental 5 years ago with a vast experience in all types of resource investigation, having previously worked for ECAN.
We help farmers eliminate stress and do that sort of work for them, get consents for that. But there's also, for example, on a dairy farm like this one, effluent disposal from the dairy shed washdown. We also do things like farm environment plans, not just for dairy farms, but any farm needs a farm environment plan to identify environmental risks and to manage them, try and even eliminate them. For an irrigation consent like the one in the background here, there is quite a lot of technical work needed. I'm an environmental engineer, so I have to do things like assessing whether his well, pumping from his well, will affect neighbouring wells, and around here there are a lot of neighbouring wells used for irrigation and domestic supply. So when he takes water from his well, he could be affecting another well. And so we have to do things like pumping tests, aquifer tests, where we monitor water levels in surrounding wells over, say, a 3-day pumping period. And the data we get from that we analyse and use to do long-term calculations over a whole season, over a whole summer, to assess whether or not he will adversely affect neighbouring wells. In some cases, that effect, by drawing the water table down in neighbouring wells, can be quite serious, can be quite large. And in those cases, either the farmer in this case would have to reduce his rate of take, or we'd have to find other ways to mitigate the effects, perhaps sinking the well deeper, going into a different aquifer.
It's not just about the water you're putting onto your farm, but also a lot of your work is based around the effects that the farm may be having on nearby water as well.
Yes, it is, and it's not just dairy farms, but any sort of intensified land use, other farms, even industrial, commercial developments, even residential developments. That intensified land use does create the potential for increased contaminants to get into the groundwater through leaching. So again, for example, for a dairy farm where the effluent from the pond is used as a fertiliser, we have to make sure that that fertiliser is applied at a rate that doesn't cause leaching, for example. So we help farmers with those pond designs, the size of the pond for storage, and also for the effluent disposal, the area of land he needs to irrigate that effluent on.
And it's not just new designs that keep the team busy, with older clay-based ponds often in need of some TLC.
A lot of the new ponds these days, or rejuvenated old ponds, they would put a synthetic liner in these days, a reasonably thick plasticky sort of liner, synthetic liner. And by lining it that way, then you virtually eliminate the chance of leakage out of the pond of that dairy effluent. And the dairy effluent, as you can probably guess, is pretty odorous and nasty stuff, so it has to be handled properly. Although there are still a lot of the older ponds that are basically a hole in the ground, compacted, and then a layer of compacted clay put along the floor and sides, and that layer of clay acts as the barrier, just like the synthetic liner does. But over time, that clay layer can become structurally damaged, and that's where we come in with doing the monitoring or measurements to prove to ECAN, who look at these things, that the pond is still structurally sound, that there is no leakage. And it's a pretty dirty sort of job, as you can imagine, but it is basically just monitoring the water level or effluent level in the pond over a period and doing some calculations.
The pond we're looking at today, what can you tell us about that?
Yes, it's a two-stage pond, which is reasonably typical. The first one collects a lot of the solids, the second one is primarily the liquid, and from that second pond, the liquid is what is sprayed out over the ground as fertiliser. It's a reasonably large set of ponds to make sure he's got enough storage, and it's a sound pond. We've looked at it several times over the last few years. Whether the farmer intends to upgrade it to a synthetically lined pond in the future, it's up to him, but at this stage it's reasonably sound.
If anyone wants to get in touch with you guys for any advice, how do they do that?
Well, our company is Bowden Environmental. We're based in Kaiapoi. There are 4 of us in the company. They can phone us on our phone number or email us at bowden.co.nz. There we've got a website. So there are various ways of getting in contact with us.
Well guys, that's us for another show. Make sure you do like us on Facebook, just search Rural NZ. Next week on the show, we're down in Geraldine. We're checking out a great community gardening project. We head down to the Waitaki to check out how Jamie's managing his herd. We head to Kaikoura to check out crayfish of the freshwater variety. We visit a young man harvesting in North Canterbury, and we learn how you can give your favourite pig the perfect belly rub. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show. I'm Gordon Finlater. We'll catch you next time.